Hello and welcome to Dune Does DVD, and this is Disney Classics number 47, Meet the Robinsons. Now this is another one in the category of never seen, never heard of. But looking at the poster and comparing it to Chicken Little, there seems to be quite a lot of similarity between the main characters. They've both got a sort of similar anxious, nerdy vibe, but I'm hoping that that's where the similarities end. Because, as you might remember, I didn't particularly enjoy Chicken Little, although it seems that people who left comments quite often disagreed with me on that fact. But we seem to have something that's more about family, and I'm guessing maybe sort of definitely not the traditional family, seeing as on the poster here we also have a dinosaur, a frog, and a guy with a funny springy hat. There's something odd going on here. The future begins, says the tagline, so possibly even maybe science fiction-y, which is a particular interest of mine, so it's got potential to be good if the main kid character isn't too annoying. So I think we've got to go into this one with fingers crossed that it's not quite as bad as I'm potentially expecting. Well, that was by no means perfect, but by the end of it, I did have a reasonably enjoyable time. It took a while for me to get into it at the beginning, but once I did, there are some interesting things here. There are definitely also some things I didn't enjoy, but I think overall the things I enjoyed outweighed the things I didn't. At the beginning I just wasn't really sure if I cared all that much for this main character, who's an orphan and a sort of nerdy genius inventor. I just don't find it particularly interesting, and it relies quite a lot on stereotypes, and it's kind of an unrealistic level of intelligence for a 12-year-old. And then I can't really appreciate the fact that he's stuck at the orphanage because he's not getting adopted because he's too much of a nerd. All the prospective parents are, looking for sports stars and whatnot, and he's just... no one wants him. As an introduction to the story, that failed to really make me care much. But eventually, the sort of main plot kicks in, and it starts to be a bit more interesting. And while I mentioned in the introduction this might be some kind of science fiction, the initial setting of it isn't. It turns out that this is involving time travel, which is a particular favourite type of science fiction story for me personally. So that instantly puts it up a notch, although of course this is a kids' film and it doesn't really do anything particularly inventive or new with that scenario. It's all the kind of things you would expect, dinosaurs from the past, meeting people that you're related to at different ages and things like that. But while it's covering all these pretty standard time travel tropes, it manages to keep it fun. Probably my biggest dislike here would be the main villain of the story, who is your, the most stereotypical moustache-twirling, one-dimensional villain who, even has a moustache, completely focused on the evil plot, and nothing really else to him. You figure out a bit more later on, but the damage has been done by that point. Reading some reviews online though, I see some people think that that character is the best part of this entire film, whereas for me it was kind of the worst. And the other thing that didn't really do it for me, which again was another character thing, was the rest of the Robinsons. They're also, I guess, incredibly zany. I don't know whether that stems from just wanting them to stand out as characters, or some way of saying that they're futuristic or just different in general, but for the most part they were just a little bit annoying. They all had their thing and just went a bit too far with it, all full out, and I'm just like, chill, no, that's too much, calm down. But still, by the end, despite those drawbacks, the film did manage to make me care about the conclusion, even if that conclusion was also kind of obvious. Technically it is competent, but nothing to write home about. The CG does its job. It's still that early 2000s look, so everything looks a bit sort of plasticky, and it was probably good at the time, but it's starting to look now a bit on the cheap side. It's not spectacular enough to elevate it anyway, but it's not so terrible that it distracts from the story, which is the most important part. Continuing with the Disney tradition, there are some songs in this one, although they are the more recent tradition of them being sort of abstract, sung by a third party about what's going on rather than being sung by the characters. They were, much like the CG, competent, but nothing spectacular. Same goes with the score, which, I hadn't really even noticed while watching the film, so it must have just been doing its job without making a massive impact. So I was then surprised to see in the credits that it had been written by Danny Elfman. So again, competent, but nowhere near his best work. So overall, it was alright. But if you haven't seen it, I wouldn't be in any, particular rush to go and see it right now. Have you seen Meet the Robinsons? What are your thoughts? Tell me about those in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again next week with Bolt.